So next on the Stoner Score, the next album I listened to today is Jim Jones and Harry Fraud's new album called Fraud Department. The Fraud Department. All right. So if you're new to the Stoner Score, of course I gotta go through the criteria of the Stoner Score. All right. So it's out of these 10 criteria: the artwork, title, intro, beat selection, use of features, less than 30% skip on first listen, content. Are you saying something? The replay value. Does this album transcend time? And number 10 is satisfaction guaranteed. Are the streets satisfied with this album? All right, I had to rush through that because I already just did it just now, but it's a whole nother video, so I got to do it again. You know how that goes. Okay, so we're going to be talking about Jim Jones' new album called The Fraud Department. Jim Jones and Harry Fraud, The Fraud Department. All right, so real quick, listen to this album, a brief review of the album. It brought me back in time. This is Jim Jones, and Jim Jones doesn't miss. He doesn't miss. He reminds me of a time where New York was on top. That's what this album reminds me of. A time where New York was on top. And of course, I'm biased because I grew up listening to Jim Jones. So it brings me back to that, the sound. He does not bend into the times. The sound, it still reminds me of a time where New York was on top. But of course, New York is not on top now, although they think they are, with it was kind of coming back a little bit with that drill shit, but right now, New York is not at top. So that's just a quick review. So Jim Jones does not miss, and this album does not miss either. It's a very good album. It's a very good album, and it would bring you back to a time where New York was on top. All right, so let me go over the criteria for the Stoner Score. All right, so number 1 is artwork. Let me inspect the artwork right now. Yeah, it's art. Yeah, it gets that. It got that. It's art. This is artwork. That's a check. The title, The Fraud Department, Harry Fraud. Okay, you got me. I see what you did there. I see what you got there. All right, you got that. That title's a go. The intro. All the songs of this album are good. All of them are good. All the songs, every one of them. All the songs are good. So the intro was good. It brought you into a vibe, a mood of New York being on top, even if it's in the back, in the past. It brought me back to that. It was a little grownish. The sounds was a little more for the grown, not much more for the the youth. The new sounds that's going on right now, but it brought me back to that time. So that intro introduced me to this album perfectly. It was a seamless introduction, and I was up for it. I liked it. I was chilling. All right. Number 4 is beat selection. The composition was done very well. The whole album was like one of the most smooth listens you're gonna ever have. Like it just flowed perfect. It flowed perfect. An album is good when it's finished. You look around like there's no more. I just started. There's no more. And this album gets that. So the beat selection was done very well. I didn't skip a thing, so that's a given. Number 5, less than 30% skip on first listen. I did not skip anything. It ended quickly, and I was sad that it was over. All right, that's when you know you listen to a good album. The use of features, again, done very well. Got New York artists on there, and but of course he didn't have. There's some notable New York artists that he didn't have on his album. I don't know why, but he had a lot of New York artists on there, so the features was done very, very well, and they're all fit. It's a Jim Jones project. They all fit in there. Content, was he saying something? Now, this could be looked at in different ways, because he wasn't telling us anything we didn't know about him. He wasn't revealing anything new. It was mostly about his childhood, his upbringings, poor, selling drugs. We know all this about Jim already. He has a whole history of this. We've heard it many times. So he wasn't really revealing anything new at all on this album about him that we didn't already know. Nothing that'll spark a whole interview segment about him. Like, oh, Jim, we didn't know this. Let's talk a whole 10 hours about this. 10 hours is a long time. But I just made up that description from the last review, so I thought I'll use it again on this review. So there was one thing he was saying there was one thing he was saying. He was being a little more political. Like he dropped a few bars on one song, did a whole song. So he was being a little political on this, which we want more of. We want a lot more of this. The activist, the elder statesman, Jim Jones, because everything else about his past, we kind of already know. So the elder statesman, the BLM movement, this is something he was speaking, he was preaching. And if he had a lot more songs of this and made a whole album out of that'll be something else. So I might have to edge him saying of content, because he did have a few, like maybe 3 songs of him touching on the BLM movement and stuff that we want to hear from him of right now, because he's an elder statesman, like I just said, you feel me? So I'll give it to him because he was saying something other than everything else that he was saying, which we already knew from the past Jim Jones song. He drops like a project every year. Wow, he's still going. That's pretty damn good. But okay, replay value. The replay value is this have songs, like at least 3 songs with a high replay value. This album doesn't garner a lot of songs in there with a lot of replay value. Does this album transcend time? The thing is that this album could be a classic. It could, even without the high pop replay value, because it's such a good project. It could be a classic. It could. But it's not. I don't say it is right now. I believe Jim Jones already have classic albums. So this one, I will not deem it a classic. It's a very good album, but it's not a classic. Is satisfaction guaranteed though? Are the streets satisfied with this album? Most definitely satisfaction is guaranteed on this album. And out of a 10, Jim Jones' new album, Jim Jones and Harry Fraud's new album, the Fraud Department gets about an 8 out of a 10 on the Stoner score, ladies and gentlemen. An 8 out of a 10 on the Stoner score.